Hey everybody, welcome to Between the Sets. I'm gonna say this is episode 4. Joining with us today is Guy Gurvette, a legend in the game. Welcome, Guy.
Hello.
Guy, for the people that don't know who you are, why don't you give us a little introduction of who you are, what you do, and what you've done, your list of accomplishments, which they're long.
Well, I started my father started a club in our garage back in New Westminster, 1971. So it was kind of nice and convenient to get involved in the sport. Kind of got introduced to the sport probably about 3 years prior to that when my father started to lift himself. And, then just kind of worked my way up through the ranks. I remember, used to do the ranking list for BC weightlifting, and I couldn't get in the top 20, and that was my goal, to get in the top 20. And then once I got in there, I just started to kind of move up the ladder, pick away at people. This is what I needed to do to get to
Nice.
15th. This is what I needed to get to 10th, and just kind of moved up in the ranks. Of course, it was great to start at a young age, because I was 43 kilo body weight, and so
How old were you?
13. So probably, near the end of 12, but probably started competing at 13. And then, back in the day, it was good because in Canadian weightlifting championships, they had a B division. So if you didn't make the standard, provinces could send B teams.
Yeah.
And so my 1974, 75, 76, I lifted in the B group, and so got good experience there. And then 1977 in the A group, and then by 1982 Canadian champion, and then I won 4 Canadian titles. First international event was 1978 Junior Worlds, and went to 3 Junior Worlds. Competed at 2 Senior Worlds, Olympic Games, Pan American Games, 3 Commonwealth Games, and then have coached at pretty much every level since then.
Wow, that's quite impressive. You went to Olympics in '88, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That was in Seoul, correct?
Yep.
Nice. How did you do there?
Not as well as I hoped to. You always want to do a little bit better, but got a little bit overtrained about a month before and didn't really fully recover. Started there, lifted in the 90 kilo category, started at 152 and a half. And, as soon as I lifted my head to start the lift, I was looking right into the official's eyes and lost my focus and missed the lift. I'd actually missed my last 3 warm-ups at 140 and 145, and then came out and made 152.5 on my second, and then close with 157.5 on my third. Clean and jerk 185 opener I made, and then I cleaned 195 twice and missed the jerk. But ended up 10th out of 29, and if I had matched what I had done in training, I could have been as high as 4th.
Wow. Well, I bet you it was a great experience, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely a good experience, and you're lifting against the best in the world, and placing wasn't all that bad, but you always look to do a little bit better.
So when did you kind of retire from weightlifting?
I've never really retired.
Oh, that is
Taken
true.
some breaks,
He's still a master's.
Yeah. But, officially, I tried to kind of make a comeback in 92 to make the Olympic team, and went to the Olympic trials, didn't go so well. And priorities changed by that time. I was, working full time, so the training, wasn't the same. And that, but still some half decent lifts. And, you just, you end up getting to the point where you start a family, and you gotta be responsible for that. So you take a kind of a step back from the sport, but every now and then come back and get involved, compete a little bit. Always kind of helped out administratively, and and done a little bit of coaching here and there, but more coaching over the last number of years.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I've known you, you've been involved in the sport this whole time as well, just at different capacities, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I put on coaching clinics, and I think it was 2005. I became international one category official. I don't really officiate, but maybe that's my
Your next,
next job in the sport, right?
yeah, I mean, you have a vast wealth of knowledge, and I would like to dig into that another time. Um, tell us about your club a bit, because I know you've obviously your dad started that a long time ago, and it's been continuing ever since. It's one of the longest running clubs.
Yeah, started in 1971, so we've been going for 49 years, and over the years, went down on the coast. I had a little setup in my garage, so I trained a few people there, but we also trained out of Douglas College in New Westminster. So coached a bit out of there, and then I had some athletes that had a setup in their garage, so I coached out of there. And once I moved up here, we did a lot of work out of the different CrossFits, and I'm not sure if I can call them that any longer, but yeah, I mean, they were supportive of us and the few lifters that we had, and then 3.5 years ago, opened up my own club in Kelowna.
Yeah, for people that don't know, guys up in Kelowna runs a great club up there, and you're the Alico rep as well. So all your equipment is great equipment out there.
Yeah, it's all eco. We don't want our lifters lifting on poor equipment, but I mean, there's obviously lots of good equipment out there nowadays, but still, I love the Alico brand, and got kind of introduced to it in 1976. Our club held the Canadian Championships in New Westminster, and we got funding from the city that year, which was allowed us to buy our first Alico bar.
Nice.
And still have that bar.
Wow.
So
that's lifetime guarantee right there.
There you go.
Yeah. A question. So you've been doing in this weightlifting game a long time. How have you noticed it changed? Like since the 70s when you started, how was it? And through the years, maybe give us a little rundown of how you think things are going in the state of it.
Well, I mean, obviously when I started, it was basically just men involved in the sport, up until I'm trying to think of when the first female started to compete provincially, but it was quite a while before they were introduced to the Olympic program in 2000. So back in my day, there were some good lifters. Like I said, at national with the B team, we had big teams that went to nationals with our B and A teams, and just some great athletes. Like my father came from the club Spartak, and the coach of Spartak was Wes Wu. Wes coached at 2 Olympic Games, 1968 and 1976, and then he was named as a coach for 1980 when there was a boycott. And at one time, he had 4 or 5 Canadian champions, and I believe I think 4 lifters from his club went to the Olympic Games. So
wow.
Keith Adams and Wayne Wilson went to the 72 Olympic Games. Paul Bjarnason, I believe, went to the 68 Games. And then there was another gentleman that I'm trying to think of the year. It was possibly 72, Brian Marsden, who trained with Spartak, but was actually from New Zealand and represented New Zealand at the Olympic Games.
Wow. That's quite impressive. How have you noticed like the number of like kind of athletes and the participation through the decades up until now, like in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and now 2000s?
Yeah, at one point there, it kind of tapered off. It's a tough sport because, I don't think our provincial organizations that govern sport and our national organizations that govern sport, like Sport Canada, Sport BC, fully understand the sport. They think that, oh, there's lots of gyms out there, so there's lots of places that we can train, but you know, that's not the case, because
Yeah,
most gyms don't want you lifting weights overhead in their gym. They don't want weights dropped. They don't want you to use chalk. So it's we have to kind of had to develop our own sport, as develop our clubs, or
that's
find a
right.
place to train, and that can be difficult, and it can be costly at times as well for some people. Some clubs get lucky; they get invited into a space, and it
Yeah.
doesn't cost them anything, or perhaps very little. But so if you look at us provincially, because of the nature of the sport, many people practice Olympic lifts, but maybe not aren't members of our association.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to count those people, and so part of funding has always been your membership. So every time things would start to develop in our sport and our membership would start to go up, the requirement for minimum numbers of members would go up. So we'd get close, and then it was unreachable, and so I think like Sport BC. I'm not a big fan of Sport BC, unfortunately. We are members of Sport BC, but I don't really feel that they do anything for our sport. Same with Sport Canada. Not a big fan of them. They've got employees that get paid more than what our sport gets as far as support, and so it's we I guess we've got to work a little bit harder, and
Yeah.
I think the sport has had pretty good success for the lack of support over a number of years.
I mean, I'm involved in the sport 10 years now, just about. And I mean, I think since even when I got on, like getting into it, it's grown, tremendously in the last 4 or 5 years. Um, would you say that it's more in the popular culture or more known now than it was? Or what time do you think when you were involved since the 70s, was it, the most in people's, like front of people's eyes and stuff?
Well, it's more popular now, and the reason is that when CrossFit developed, uh, there was an opportunity for more and more people to get exposed to Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah, I
Good,
agree
good
with
or
you.
bad, they
Yeah.
were exposed to that type of lifting, and it's been uh, I think a very beneficial relationship, because CrossFit has learned from us, and obviously we've learned and received benefits from them. So pretty good all around. And it's just a matter of the hope for me is that these young people that are getting involved in CrossFit learn how to Olympic lift obviously much earlier, get into competition, and that's how we're going to find lots of good champions over the years.
Yeah, I think definitely a lot more people are doing it now. A lot more people are curious. Like you said, I think it's more accessible to the sense of like maybe people like you and people like us opening a gym and a club is kind of making it more accessible to everyone, and learning the lifts. Because what I found is most people obviously think it's cool and want to try it, but obviously it looks quote unquote dangerous or it's hard. And you know what? It is hard, but that's kind of part of what makes the sport awesome, right?
Yeah, and I think there's lots of misconceptions about the sport.
Yeah,
Kind of old school thinking. That it's not a good sport for young people to get involved in, but it is a fantastic sport for young people,
absolutely.
whether or not they're competing or they're just getting want to get better for the sport that they're in,
Yeah.
because they're going to be building strength, power, tendon, ligament, muscle strength,
Yeah.
like over time. And it's not like we're taking a young kid and throwing maximum weight on them. We're teaching them, good coaches are teaching them
Yeah.
good technique, and over time they're conditioning their body and mind to lift heavier weights.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, like, I'm sure you train some athletes as well as we do for whatever sport they play, and it's a great base for any dynamic sport, right? Like power, agility, mobility, right?
Yeah, well, give you a good example of Dieter Stam, who ran the Semiahmoo weightlifting club. He had these twin brothers that were rugby players, and in the off season they came and trained at his club, and they went back to rugby, and the coaches could not believe how much better they were. And instead of taking the team and saying, okay, we all have to do this type of training, they did, probably nothing with it. So these two developed well within a few months. So it's hard to believe that nowadays that we have to try to sell this type of lifting for sport.
That's true.
You
Yeah.
know, it's been around forever. The benefits of being around forever, and so I don't know if it's a fear or lack of knowledge, or or just like the way I see it is that if you're a sport team, a coach in another sport, and you don't have the expertise to teach these, then develop a relationship with a club that can, a coach or a club that can, and then there's benefits all around, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and so it's hard to believe that because of the value that we bring to sport, that we aren't in a much better position in Canada.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. But I think, like I said, we're pushing the ball forward. I mean, the thing is, we are a niche sport and we don't really draw in money or a lot of viewers. So people, we kind of fall to the side in my view there.
Yeah, but you know what, I hear that a lot. Yeah, we don't bring in a lot of money. I agree there, but it's a sport that people love to watch.
It's good
Okay,
drama in it.
so if you don't show it, obviously they can't watch it. And
Yeah.
for a number of years, CBC covered our national championships,
Oh, I didn't
and
know that.
and then all of a sudden that disappeared. We have uh, you know a national board that should be approaching CBC, and one of those people is in media. So they should be going to CBC and saying, listen, we want to get coverage, or we got to find a way so people can watch us. But it's a great sport for people to watch at the Olympic Games,
Oh yeah, it's
right?
it's very good. High drama, very good. Well, saying that, we can lead on. My next thing is talking about the national body and stuff. Well, what with obviously the COVID going on right now, like all competitions are canceled and kind of on hold. What do you see happening, and where do you see like our nationals and local competitions and like further Olympics and stuff? Like what's going to go on with that?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's very tough. We don't know what it's going to look like down the road. We hope that we can continue to competition. We were supposed to hold nationals in Kelowna in May,
Yeah,
uh, and that just was postponed. Now the event for this year is officially canceled. We still have to decide whether or not we can host Ogopogo in August. It may be tough.
yeah,
Uh, there's a possible way that we could do it, but I really have to take a look at it. But events, we have to start maybe doing some online stuff. I know that there's some of that happening. I just was looking at something today about the Oceania Federation. They have an event every year, and it's connected with Alico. So it's this year it's going to be an online, and you can do your lifts at home. If some of the clubs are operating, then maybe it's something they want to look at. But it's a way to kind of uh, test yourself and just kind of see how you rank with people around the world in your
yeah.
category.
It's a good idea.
And this is going to be near the end of July. I think it's July 24th, 25th, where it has to take place, and then results are submitted. And then there's Alico is sponsoring bars to winners
Hmm,
in both the men's and women's categories.
that's
So
cool. What about international competitions? What's the word on the street with that?
Well, I've heard that Korea is still looking to host the World Universities in October, but again, that might change if things don't kind of get back to some kind of normalcy.
Yeah,
Uh, and then again, how do we get set up for our athletes to give them an opportunity to qualify?
yeah,
So Ogopogo was to be a qualifier for that event. So, I guess the federation kind of has to look at how do we uh, prepare for when competitions open up again, especially international events. How do we give the opportunity for our athletes to actually reach a standard that they would be able to participate?
yeah. I mean, they're gonna have to juggle that whole calendar now that everything's kind of shifted, right?
Oh yeah,
I mean, because the Olympics is now 2021 next year, but who knows what's going to happen there? It's a long time away because things
right.
move so fast right now. But I guess if they have to delay it one more time, they're probably just going to cancel it. What do you, right?
I would think so. I mean,
Yeah,
the cost of canceling our delay is just unbelievable when you look at Olympic Games.
yeah,
Canceling a national championships isn't really a big deal,
yeah,
right? There's probably minimal to no cost put into it by the time you cancel it. But the bigger the event, the more preparation and more money that goes into it.
yeah. And I guess that kind of goes into the timeline for all the other events that happen after, right? Like Summer Olympics and all these kind of things that kind of start getting
Yeah,
crunched together, right?
right. I mean, you think of all the cost and events that the lifters around the world had to participate in leading up to qualification for the 2020 Olympic Games. Yeah, and with only one qualifier left for everybody, and then the Olympic Games gets postponed. What's it going to look like for the next year? For some people, it's going to be tough, but for other people, maybe it's going to be even better for them
Yeah,
because it's more time to develop,
that's right.
get to a higher level.
Yeah,
And we in Canada, we've got two lifters that could potentially medal at the Olympic Games, and
yeah,
we've got a few others that potentially could end up competing there.
yeah. It's gonna be up in the air. I guess only time can tell how the COVID virus kind of plays out before we kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
Here's another question. How do you think training has changed through the years, like through the decades, or have you that you've noticed, or if any at all?
Uh, back in my day, I mean, there's a lot of the top lifters train pretty hard, and I think on most part people train hard, but it's maybe a little bit different. Uh, it depends on the situation too. Like if you have to manage work or school and training, then it may be a little bit more difficult. If you're in a position where you can focus just on the training, then obviously you can put more time into it. When I was on national team, we were training 25 hours a week.
Oh yeah.
And some lifters now think that 6 to 10 hours a week is a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
So, but again, you gotta manage your time. We've had some great lifters in Canada that put themselves through school and qualified for Olympic Games, and so it can be done. You have to be the right type of person to be able to manage everything that comes along in life.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's a lot of factors as well as like just getting used to that training load and recovery and
Yeah.
a lot of factors that kind of play into that as well, right? Age.
Yeah, I think part of it too is that the best part of my training was training with others that were good or better than me, because that pushes you to be better. You work harder. So if you're training alone a lot, obviously the last 2.5 months, many people have been training alone. But
Yeah.
when things are normal, you need to try to coordinate times as best you can. So you're training with people that are going to challenge you or push you and to a higher level.
And yeah, I think that's one of the things that people have noticed because of the COVID situation. They've been, training at home, doing the best they can. But now I think for the ones that really take the gym for granted, they're kind of back with more vigor now and
Yeah.
happy to be around people, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
that's what we are finding, and which is great. And I hope, we can keep that going and keep the training up to kind of get back to where we were, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, Next question I have for you is who's the best lifter you've ever seen, like in your time personally?
Personally,
Yeah, just kind of seen lift or seen.
I mean, I've seen a lot of great lifters because
I know.
been to many big international events. I mean, I as a junior, 1980 Junior Worlds, there was some lifters that were there from Russia and Bulgaria that went on to be incredible lifters. Like Zakharevich. You know, so I watched Zakharevich 2 times in major events. And one was the Pannonia Cup in 1983. And previous to that event, as a junior in the 100 kilo category, he had done 200 and 240 for world
Wow.
records. And he came to this event, Pannonia Cup, and weighed over into the 110 kilo category, didn't cut down. And the world record snatch in that category was 196 and a half, I believe. So less than his junior world record in the lighter category. So he started at 182 and a half, made that, jumped to 197.5 for a world record, missed it, and then on his third, he pulled it in and sat there for a second and dislocated his elbow.
Oh, wow.
And so here you think he's done, and 5 years later he comes back to the Olympic Games, 110 kilo category, and snatches 210 kilos and clean and jerks 245.
Wow.
So just amazing, guys like that. I've seen Zlatev from Bulgaria, and um, um, just numerous lifters. Kurlovich, obviously, one I never got to see lift personally, but did see him coaching was David Riggert.
Oh yeah.
Just I watched at a very young age. I watched on a projector, like a 8mm projector, and watched World Championships, Olympic Games, and got to see some great lifters at an early age. And I studied these lifters, and I knew what was good technique, what was bad technique, and then just worked on perfecting the best technique that I could.
Hey, that was like your video analysis back then. Even back then, you were technique. Everyone's watching videos.
Yeah, I mean, back in my day, there was no social media.
Yeah.
And a good part of that is that people didn't know what you were doing in training. You could come to an event and surprise people.
Yeah.
So nowadays everybody knows what the other person's doing, and but yeah, I mean, video analysis back in the day, I was lucky enough because Wes Wu, my father's coach at Spartak, had these films from World Championships, Olympic Games, and I just sit in the basement and watch these things over and over again.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, well, one final thing is, who's your favorite lifter of all time?
Favorite of all time?
Yeah, of all time.
Well, I'd have to say that probably the guy that really sticks out the most is Vasily Alexiev. You know, if you look at that guy, nobody seemed to be able to beat him. It was like he had this psychological advantage over everybody that he competed against. At one point in his life, I think his world record clean and jerk was a pound more than his world record our world record press was a pound more than his world record clean and jerk.
Jesus.
So he's the first man to press over 500 pounds, and he was a big guy, big stomach, but if you know some of his abilities, he was quite an amazing lifter.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, for those of you,
also, I got a chance to meet him when we hosted the 2003 Worlds and sat beside him at a press conference. So,
was he? Yeah. He's a big guy, eh?
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Well, for those of you that don't know, Guy also has your equipment, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? So if anyone needs any supplies, then come your way.
Yeah, right now I represent Alico. I've been representing them since about 2003, 2004. I have been selling Adidas. One thing that most people may not know is that just a few months ago, my supplier in Germany terminated our agreement. So I can't get more product from them. I still have, a fair bit of product that hopefully people will purchase, and I'll look at trying to maybe get some other lines in over the years. But I was the first one to bring Adidas weightlifting products into Canada, and nice. So it's been great. Had a lot of support from people over the years, but it doesn't appear that I'll be able to get Adidas equipment in any longer.
What's your website if people need to kind of find you?
You can go to vikingweightlifting.com, and you'll see a little bit of information on myself and then the products that I sell. And then if there's something you're looking for, they can always contact me, and I'll get back to them as soon as I can.
Well, perfect. Yeah. If you guys don't know, Guy's an amazing coach, a great friend, and a great colleague. So please check him out when you're in Kelowna. And thanks for joining in on this. And I think we'll chat again, maybe on some other stuff, like maybe training methodologies and stuff like that.
No, sounds good. I appreciate you having me on today.
Of course. Okay. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay. Bye.